Attorney's fees in divorce actions. Hey, sometimes they can get relatively high. Is there anything you can do about it? Well, it takes us to this week's case. It involves a man, Kenneth Felis, who was up in Vermont. Kenneth was going through a very, very, very contested divorce with his wife. Under the agreement, the marital property was going to be used to pay his wife's attorney's fees. The fees were basically rolling along and rolling up and had reached $800,000, and the divorce still wasn't completed. So Kenneth sues his wife's attorneys directly, said these fees are outrageous and I'm being harmed by this because basically my half of the community property is being used to help pay for these attorney's fees. So he sued the law firm on two bases. One was he contended that he was defrauded. Two, he contended that they breached his fiduciary duty. So what happened? Well, interestingly enough, the case went up to the Vermont Supreme Court. At the Vermont Supreme Court, courts looked at these various arguments. As to the argument regarding fraud, they said, hang on a second. You know, in order to have real fraud, you have to have a misrepresentation. And in this instance, there was no misrepresentation. I mean, basically, fraud is somebody sells you an automobile. They say it has 50,000 miles on it. It turns out it has 500,000 miles on it, in reliance on the argument that it had 50,000 miles. You bought that car, it turned out to be a worn-out automobile because you relied upon that misrepresentation. In this instance, there was no misrepresentation. Kenneth, you knew what those bills were going in on this thing. You saw the bills beginning to accumulate. You knew how much was actually being spent by your wife on this law firm, and therefore there wasn't any misrepresentation. In addition, there was no reliance on the misrepresentation. You didn't do anything any different. There wasn't anything different you could do. And in view of this, we find that the whole claim for fraud is gone. There is no fraud claim. Now, as to a breach of fiduciary duty, let's look at who's on first. You were involved as one party in the divorce action. Your wife is involved in another party. Both of you have your own attorneys. Your wife's attorneys owe no obligation to you, no fiduciary obligation to you, since they are representing her. They owe a fiduciary obligation to her, not to you. And since there is no fiduciary obligation owed to you, your claim for breach of fiduciary obligation is not a good claim. It's out of here. It's gone. Well, in view of this, Kenneth did not have any claim against his wife's attorneys for the high attorney's fees, and the case, the divorce case, continued. Well, we bring you this case, we bring you cases every week, so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.